The hustle and bustle of LA and New York is very real. They share the same skill of burning a hole in your wallet without realizing. Let's get into the living costs of LA versus New York and where you should move or visit.
I want to be there and baby dance the night away. I let my head down if I want. Don't you just get tired chasing fame and being pretty?
My name is EJ Horseman, Realtor and investor here, right in Los Angeles. Please reach out via the link in the description and I'd be happy to help you find the perfect home. So LA and New York are both expensive coastal cities, and you'll find that New York is actually quite a bit pricier overall. The thing that New York has is there's just so little space that unless you're a millionaire, it's gonna feel cramped. A studio in LA will cost you between $1,500 and $2,000, where in New York, the minimum price will be about $1,900. And in New York, you'll get about half the square footage. Personally, I love to visit New York because everything is so close and you can walk and take the subway everywhere. But to live there would be really tough. I like having more space, and living in a closet does not sound fun. Here's what looks like an average studio in New York, probably above average. Having your own bathroom is huge, as is having appliances like a fridge, dishwasher, and stove. Some apartments are literally just a room with a sink. A buddy of mine lived for years in a small studio with his girlfriend. I don't know how they did it. The average salaries in both New York and Los Angeles are comparable. It's about $68,000 in LA and $67,000 in New York, according to ZipRecruiter. To be honest, food and groceries will be about the same, but it definitely matters which part of these cities you live in. Manhattan and Brooklyn will be the most expensive in New York, with Queens being a little cheaper. Then in LA, the West Side and beach cities are pricier, with the East Side and Valley being a bit more affordable. If you're deciding between living in LA or New York, it will definitely depend on your preferred lifestyle. In Los Angeles, you're going to be driving a lot, everything's spread out, and as people say, it takes 30 minutes to get anywhere. The public transportation infrastructure is just not there, so to get anywhere in a reasonable amount of time, you'll need a car. Whereas in New York, most people don't have cars. The subway goes everywhere, and everything is close together. You can walk all over the city. In Los Angeles, it can be tough to arrange social events because everyone lives far from each other. I have friends all over LA, but each place takes about 30 minutes to get to, if not an hour or more, especially during rush hour. In New York, you can hop on the subway and get somewhere in 20 minutes. So if you're super social, New York might be a better spot for you. If you like your privacy, LA could be your best bet. There are certain reasons why you might want to avoid either city. If you hate driving, Los Angeles is probably not the city for you. You'll be spending a lot of time in your car. If you hate walking, New York is probably not for you. Driving in New York City is some of the worst in the country. And again, most people don't own cars in New York. In terms of community, New York is much more tight-knit and bound together. There are central gathering places like Central Park, for example. Everyone knows the main spots to go to, and it's easy to get everywhere. Los Angeles, on the other hand, is made up of 88 cities, each with its own culture and hotspots. The weather in New York is typical East Coast. It's a mix of sun, rain, and the whole four seasons. So if you're used to that or you want that, New York is the place to be. LA is sunny most of the time. If you love sun and sand, LA is your spot. You also have to be careful in LA because the UV index is much higher and we're closer to the equator here. So wear sunscreen. If you're thinking about moving to Los Angeles, please reach out. Whether you're renting or buying, me and my team would be happy to help you find your ideal place to live. Even though it's on the coast, just like LA, New York is much easier to get to. I'm sure it stems from the US being founded on the East Coast. There's just more there. It's also easier to get to Europe and Africa if that's of interest to you. Los Angeles is the desert. It's harder for most of the country to visit you there unless you're from there. Although it is easier to get to South America, Asia, and Hawaii and Alaska. but it's long flights back to the East Coast and the Midwest. So take that into consideration. For living in each city long term, there are pros and cons to both. If you want to raise a family, it's going to be easier in LA because of the amount of space. I'm sure it'd be really difficult to raise kids in a tiny apartment in New York. Most folks move outside the city when they're ready for a family, and New Jersey is very popular and actually almost as expensive in some parts. Most of Los Angeles is single-family housing, so starting a family is just a matter of getting a bigger house. Both cities are great in the short term, especially for networking and job opportunities. Really, either city is an absolute boon for career growth. Every industry is represented in both cities. Some people ask which city is better for actors, and I've learned that LA is better for film and TV, and New York is better for theater, to speak in generalities. So in general, LA and New York are comparable in living costs. You'll spend about the same but get less space in New York. And LA has the sun and the beaches, but it's more spread out, and you'll spend a lot of time in the car. I say live where you want to live and figure it out from there. If you found value from this video, make sure you're subscribed. In the last video, we discussed what $1 million will get you in Los Angeles. Check it out here. Keep coming back. I put out new videos every week.